The courtroom was electric with tension as Chief Judge William Pryor delivered what can only be described as a devastating blow to Meghan Markle's legal strategy. In a moment that will haunt the Duchess of Sussex for months to come, Pryor's sharp rebuke of her attorneys echoed through the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals, leaving royal watchers stunned and Samantha Markle's legal team celebrating what they're calling a strategic victory.
Do you think meeting Harry, being with Harry, marrying Harry, has improved your sister's behavior, or do you think it's made it worse, the whole situation?
September 9th, 2025 will go down as the day Meghan's carefully orchestrated legal machine finally cracked under pressure. Sources close to the courtroom describe an atmosphere of palpable discomfort as Pryor systematically dismantled the arguments presented by Meghan's high-powered legal team. The judge's criticism wasn't just harsh, it was surgical, cutting straight to the heart of what legal experts are now calling a fundamentally flawed defense strategy.
Because I think he has personality profile that perfectly enables someone who is an alleged narcissist.
Word from inside the appeals court suggests that Meghan's attorneys appeared visibly shaken as Pryor declared their arguments were, quote, beside the point. This wasn't just legal criticism, this was a public humiliation of epic proportions. The same legal team that had successfully defended Meghan against numerous other challenges suddenly found themselves scrambling to address procedural issues they had apparently overlooked entirely. Palace insiders whisper that news of the courtroom disaster reached Meghan within hours, sending shockwaves through her Montecito mansion.
I don't think she's capable of empathy, remorse, or shame. I don't think she could feel enough to apologize.
The woman who has built her post-royal brand on being in control, on being the victim who fights back, suddenly found herself on the receiving end of a judicial beatdown that no amount of public relations spin could soften. Samantha Markle's attorney, Peter Ticktin, wasted no time capitalizing on this unexpected gift. Legal observers describe his performance as masterful, seizing on every misstep by Meghan's team to build momentum for his client's appeal.
When you're pregnant, there's not a pillow under your skirt, and there's live footage of her walking towards camera with her abdomen swaying left to right in a black and white checkered dress.
The irony is almost too perfect. Meghan, who has spent years positioning herself as the wronged party in every family dispute, now finds herself outmaneuvered by the half-sister she has tried so hard to silence. The reverberations of this courtroom clash are already being felt across royal circles and Hollywood alike. Industry insiders suggest this isn't just about one legal case. It's about the beginning of a new chapter where Meghan's seemingly untouchable legal armor is finally showing cracks. But what happened in that courtroom was just the opening act of what promises to be an even more explosive legal drama.
When she said, I lost my father, we knew that she didn't lose our dad, she iced our father.
Peter Ticktin came to court armed and ready for battle, and his demolition of Meghan's defense strategy was nothing short of surgical. The veteran attorney didn't just challenge Meghan's legal arguments, he exposed what he characterized as a desperate attempt to throw everything at the wall and hope something would stick. Sources in the courtroom described Ticktin's presentation as calculated, methodical, and absolutely devastating. The term that's now haunting Meghan's legal team is, quote, smorgasbord, Ticktin's perfectly chosen word to describe their scattered, unfocused approach to defending against Samantha's defamation claims. Legal experts are calling it one of the most effective courtroom metaphors they've heard in years, painting a picture of Meghan's attorneys frantically grabbing at every possible defense rather than addressing the core issues head-on. Reports from inside the appeals court suggest that Ticktin's strategy was brilliant in its simplicity. Rather than getting bogged down in complex legal technicalities, he focused the judge's attention on what he sees as the fundamental weakness in Meghan's position, her team's refusal to engage with the actual substance of Samantha's allegations. The message was clear. If Meghan's case was so strong, why were her lawyers running from a direct confrontation? Insiders close to Samantha's legal team reveal that Ticktin had been preparing for this moment for months, studying every brief, every motion, every public statement from Meghan's side. His courtroom performance wasn't just legal advocacy, it was a masterclass in strategic litigation designed to expose the cracks in what many had assumed was an impenetrable defense. The brilliance of the smorgasbord attack lies in how it reframes the entire narrative. Instead of Meghan being the victim of a frivolous lawsuit, Ticktin painted her as someone whose legal team was so unsure of their position that they couldn't even settle on a coherent defense strategy. Royal commentators are already speculating about how this characterization could damage Meghan's carefully cultivated image as someone who always fights from a position of moral authority. Palace sources whisper that the effectiveness of Ticktin's attack caught Meghan's team completely off guard. They had prepared for a technical legal battle, but they weren't ready for the kind of rhetorical warfare that turns courtroom proceedings into public relations disasters. And the smorgasbord attack was just the beginning of Meghan's legal nightmare. What happened next in that courtroom can only be described as a legal catastrophe of epic proportions. In what legal observers are calling an unprecedented admission of incompetence, Meghan's attorneys were forced to acknowledge that they had overlooked critical elements in their motion to dismiss. The courtroom fell silent as the realization dawned that one of Hollywood's most expensive legal teams had essentially handed their opponents a roadmap to victory. Sources close to the proceedings described the moment as surreal. These weren't inexperienced lawyers fresh out of law school. These were seasoned attorneys who had been billing Meghan hundreds of dollars per hour, and yet they stood before the appellate court admitting to what can only be characterized as amateur-level mistakes. The judge's expressions reportedly shifted from professional skepticism to barely concealed disbelief as the scope of the oversight became clear. Legal experts following the case are stunned by what they're witnessing. One prominent defamation attorney, speaking on condition of anonymity, described the admission as, quote, legal malpractice in real time. The fact that Meghan's team acknowledged these critical gaps during oral arguments rather than addressing them beforehand suggests a level of unpreparedness that's shocking for a case of this magnitude and public scrutiny. Insiders reveal that Tickton could barely contain his satisfaction as Meghan's attorneys essentially built his case for him. Every admission of oversight, every acknowledgement of procedural gaps gave Samantha's legal team additional ammunition to argue that the original dismissal was flawed from the beginning. It was like watching someone hand over the keys to their own destruction. The ripple effects of this courtroom disaster are already being felt throughout Meghan's broader legal strategy. Sources suggest that other pending cases are now being reviewed with fresh urgency, as questions swirl about whether similar oversights might exist elsewhere. The woman who has built her post-royal career on projecting competence and control suddenly finds herself associated with legal incompetence on a national stage. Palace watchers are whispering about emergency meetings in Montecito, frantic calls to crisis management specialists, and a growing sense that this procedural disaster represents something much larger than a single legal misstep. When your attorneys are making admissions that strengthen your opponent's case, you know you're in uncharted territory, but the procedural nightmare was just setting the stage for even more damaging revelations. The heart of Samantha's legal assault centers on allegations so serious that they've left Meghan's team scrambling for answers. According to court documents, Samantha claims that Meghan's carefully orchestrated media appearances, particularly that explosive Oprah Winfrey interview and the Netflix series, weren't just family drama aired in public. They were calculated attacks designed to destroy her half-sister's reputation and safety. The most chilling aspect of Samantha's case involves what she describes as credible death threats that began flooding her life after Meghan's public statements. Sources close to Samantha reveal that these weren't just angry social media comments, but detailed specific threats that required law enforcement intervention. The timing, Samantha's legal team argues, wasn't coincidental. It directly followed Meghan's public characterizations of her half-sister as a spreader of disinformation. Court filings paint a disturbing picture of how Meghan's public relations strategy allegedly weaponized her massive global platform against a family member. When Meghan told Oprah that she, quote, grew up as an only child, Samantha's attorneys argue this wasn't just personal opinion. It was a deliberate erasure designed to invalidate her half-sister's very existence. The Netflix series allegedly doubled down on this narrative, presenting Samantha as an opportunistic troublemaker rather than a legitimate family member with genuine concerns. Legal experts following the case note that the disinformation angle gives Samantha's claims particular potency in today's media landscape. By allegedly labeling Samantha a spreader of false information, Meghan may have inadvertently created a target for online harassment campaigns. The defense of calling these statements protected opinions becomes much weaker when the consequences include genuine safety concerns. Insiders suggest that the death threat allegations have rattled Meghan's legal team because they transform what could have been dismissed as family squabbling into something far more serious. If Samantha can demonstrate that Meghan's public statements directly led to threats against her safety, the legal calculus changes dramatically. This isn't just about hurt feelings or damaged reputations. It's about the very real consequences of wielding celebrity influence irresponsibly. Palace sources whisper that Meghan's team had hoped to frame this entire case as frivolous family drama, but the death threat element makes that strategy almost impossible to maintain. You can't easily dismiss safety concerns as publicity-seeking, especially when law enforcement documentation supports the claims. The stakes were about to get even higher as the courtroom drama intensified. September 9th will be remembered as the day Meghan Markle's legal invincibility finally crumbled in spectacular fashion. What was supposed to be a routine appellate hearing transformed into a public evisceration that left her high-powered legal team looking like deer caught in headlights. Sources inside the courtroom describe an atmosphere of mounting tension as it became clear that Meghan's attorneys were not just losing the argument, they were being systematically dismantled. The judicial panel's skeptical questioning began almost immediately, with each judge taking turns exposing weaknesses in Meghan's defense strategy. Legal observers note that appellate courts typically maintain professional decorum, but the level of pointed criticism directed at Meghan's team was extraordinary. When Chief Judge Pryor declared their arguments beside the point, it wasn't just legal critique, it was a judicial smackdown broadcast to anyone following the case. Insiders reveal that Meghan's attorneys appeared visibly uncomfortable as the questioning intensified. These are lawyers accustomed to commanding courtrooms, to being treated with deference befitting their reputation and billing rates. Instead, they found themselves on the defensive, scrambling to address fundamental flaws in their approach that they had apparently never anticipated would be challenged so directly. Peter Tickton, meanwhile, seized every opportunity to capitalize on his opponent's discomfort. Court watchers describe his performance as masterful, allowing Meghan's team to dig their own grave while he positioned himself as the voice of reason and preparation. The contrast was stark. While Meghan's attorneys stumbled through explanations and admissions, Tickton presented a clear, coherent narrative that resonated with the judicial panel. The rhetorical battle was over before it really began. Sources suggest that seasoned court reporters, who have witnessed thousands of appellate arguments, were exchanging glances as it became obvious that one side had come prepared for war, while the other had apparently expected a casual conversation. The mismatch was so pronounced that legal commentators are already calling it a textbook example of how not to handle an appellate hearing. Royal watchers are buzzing about the broader implications of this courtroom humiliation. Meghan has built her entire post-royal brand on projecting competence, control, and moral authority. Watching her legal team get systematically dismantled by a judge contradicts every carefully crafted narrative she has spent years building. But the courtroom humiliation was just the visible tip of a much larger strategic disaster. Here's where the legal chess match gets truly fascinating, and why Samantha Markle's team is popping champagne despite the case's likely dismissal. In what can only be described as a masterclass in strategic litigation, Tickton has managed to transform what appears to be a legal loss into a devastating public relations victory that could haunt Meghan for years to come. The brilliance of this approach lies in understanding that sometimes the battle for public perception matters more than the immediate courtroom outcome. Legal experts are calling it the legal equivalent of a Pyrrhic victory in reverse. While Meghan's team will likely celebrate when the dismissal is upheld, Samantha's side has already achieved something potentially more valuable. They've exposed the fundamental weaknesses in Meghan's legal armor and created a template for future challenges. Sources close to the case reveal that this was always part of Tickton's long-term strategy, understanding that appellate courts rarely overturn dismissals, but knowing that a strong showing could lay groundwork for other legal battles. The strategic genius becomes clear when you examine what Samantha's team has actually accomplished. They've forced Meghan's attorneys to make damaging admissions on the public record. They've demonstrated that even Hollywood's most expensive legal teams can be caught unprepared and outmaneuvered. They've created judicial criticism that will follow Meghan into any future legal proceedings. Most importantly, they've shifted the narrative from Samantha being a frivolous litigant to Meghan being someone whose legal team can't even handle basic procedural requirements. Insiders suggest that the real victory lies in how this case will be remembered and referenced. Every future lawsuit against Meghan will cite this appellate hearing as evidence that her legal strategies are fundamentally flawed. Every legal opponent will study Tickton's approach as a roadmap for how to expose weaknesses in Team Meghan's armor. The precedent has been set, and it doesn't favor the Duchess of Sussex. Palace watchers are beginning to understand the long-term implications of what happened in that courtroom. This wasn't just about one family dispute or one defamation case. This was about establishing that Meghan Markle is not legally untouchable, that her high-powered attorneys are fallible, and that strategic persistence can expose cracks in even the most carefully constructed legal defense. The ripple effects of this realization are already being felt across Hollywood and royal circles alike. Royal commentators are whispering about other potential litigants who might now feel emboldened to challenge Meghan, knowing that her legal team has shown vulnerability. The woman who seemed to have an answer for every legal challenge suddenly looks far more approachable to those who might have grievances against her. Sources suggest that several parties who had been hesitant to take on Team Meghan are now reconsidering their positions, viewing this appellate hearing as proof that victory is possible. But perhaps the most devastating aspect of Samantha's strategic victory is how it undermines Meghan's carefully crafted image of competence and control. The phones were reportedly ringing off the hook in Montecito as news of the courtroom disaster reached Meghan's inner circle. Sources close to the Duchess reveal that emergency meetings were called within hours of the appellate hearing, with crisis management specialists, public relations experts, and brand consultants all scrambling to assess the damage to what has become Meghan's most valuable asset, her carefully curated public image. The woman who has spent millions crafting her post-royal brand suddenly found herself facing a crisis that no amount of glossy magazine covers could fix. Industry insiders suggest that the brand damage from this legal stumble could be more devastating than any previous controversy because it strikes at the core of Meghan's public persona. Her entire post-royal strategy has been built on projecting competence, preparation, and moral authority. When your legal team is making admissions of oversight in federal court, that narrative becomes almost impossible to maintain. The contrast between her polished public appearances and her attorney's courtroom fumbling creates a cognitive dissonance that even her most loyal supporters are struggling to reconcile. Hollywood sources whisper about urgent strategy sessions where Meghan's team grappled with how to spin a story that seems inherently unspinnable. How do you put a positive PR angle on judicial criticism of your legal strategy? How do you maintain an image of control when your own attorneys are admitting to procedural mistakes? These aren't the kinds of challenges that traditional celebrity damage control is designed to handle, and the usual playbook seems woefully inadequate for this particular crisis. The ripple effects are already being felt across Meghan's business empire. Entertainment industry sources suggest that potential partners and collaborators are quietly reassessing their associations with someone whose legal judgment is now in question. When your brand is built on being a sophisticated operator who can navigate complex challenges, having your legal team exposed as unprepared creates doubt about your judgment in other areas. The domino effect could impact everything from streaming deals to publishing contracts. Royal commentators note that this crisis is particularly damaging because it reinforces existing narratives about Meghan's relationship with conflict and controversy. Critics who have long argued that she's surrounded by legal drama now have concrete evidence of legal incompetence to point to. The perception that she can't even manage her own legal affairs effectively undermines her credibility on larger issues and causes she champions. Palace insiders reveal that the brand damage extends beyond just Meghan to potentially impact Prince Harry as well. Their joint ventures and shared public appearances mean that questions about her legal competence inevitably reflect on his judgment in supporting those strategies. Sources suggest that this could create new tensions in their relationship as Harry grapples with how his wife's legal troubles might affect his own rehabilitation efforts with the British public. Perhaps most troubling for Team Meghan is how this legal disaster disrupts her carefully planned narrative arc. She was supposed to be moving beyond royal drama and family conflicts, establishing herself as a serious businesswoman and cultural influencer. Instead, she finds herself mired in the kind of legal embarrassment that makes her look amateurish rather than aspirational. The brand rehabilitation efforts were already underway, but they faced an even bigger challenge ahead. The legal bombshell has sent shockwaves far beyond the courtroom, with royal commentators and family dynamics experts weighing in on what this means for the already fractured Markle family relationships. Sources close to the situation reveal that this latest development has essentially slammed the door on any possibility of reconciliation between Meghan and her paternal relatives, creating what some are calling an irreparable chasm that will define family relationships for generations to come. Royal biographers are calling this the final nail in the coffin of Markle family unity. The legal battle has transformed what was once private family dysfunction into public warfare, with each court filing an appellate hearing driving the siblings further apart. Palace insiders suggest that Meghan's inner circle had hoped the legal challenges would eventually fade away, allowing for some form of reconciliation down the road. Instead, the courtroom victories and defeats have created permanent battle lines that make any future family healing virtually impossible. Thomas Markle Sr.'s camp is reportedly viewing Samantha's legal persistence as vindication of their long-standing concerns about Meghan's treatment of family members. Sources close to Thomas suggest that watching Samantha hold her own against Meghan's high-powered legal team has given him renewed hope that his own grievances might someday receive proper attention. The courtroom drama has essentially transformed family disputes into a broader narrative about Meghan's character and how she handles relationships with people who knew her before fame. The psychological implications of this deepening rift are fascinating royal watchers and family therapists alike. Dr. Sarah Williams, a specialist in celebrity family dynamics, suggests that legal battles create a particularly toxic form of family conflict because they force private grievances into public forums where reconciliation becomes almost impossible. Every court filing becomes a public accusation. Every legal brief becomes a family betrayal that gets preserved in official records forever. Royal commentators note that this family warfare is particularly damaging to Meghan because it contradicts her carefully crafted image as someone who values relationships and authentic connections. When multiple family members are willing to pursue legal action against you, it raises questions about your character that no amount of public relations spin can completely address. The optics of being estranged from virtually every member of your paternal family, while positioning yourself as a relationship expert and wellness guru, create a credibility gap that even sympathetic media coverage struggles to bridge. Palace sources whisper that the legal battle has also created unexpected alliances within the extended Markle family, with relatives who previously had little contact now bonding over their shared experiences with Meghan's legal strategies. These new family dynamics could potentially lead to coordinated future challenges or public statements that would be even more difficult for Meghan to manage than individual disputes. The international media coverage of this family drama has turned the Markle surname into something approaching a cautionary tale about how fame and legal battles can destroy family relationships. British tabloids are having a field day with the contrast between Meghan's public advocacy for mental health and family values while simultaneously being embroiled in legal warfare with her own relatives. Perhaps most troubling for Meghan's long-term prospects is how this family rift affects her children's future relationships with their extended family. Sources suggest that Archie and Lilibet may grow up with virtually no connection to their maternal grandfather's side of the family, a situation that could create its own psychological and emotional challenges as they mature. But the family drama was about to be overshadowed by the looming legal decisions that could reshape everything. The legal chess match is far from over, and what happens next could either vindicate Samantha's strategic gamble or hand Meghan the definitive victory she desperately needs to restore her battered reputation. Court watchers are on the edge of their seats waiting for the written opinion that will either memorialize the judicial criticism of Meghan's legal team or potentially soften the blow through careful legal language that focuses on technicalities rather than the courtroom drama that unfolded. Legal experts following the case suggest that the written opinion holds the key to understanding the long-term implications of this appellate hearing. If Chief Judge Pryor's harsh criticism makes it into the official record, it becomes permanent ammunition for any future legal challenges against Meghan. Sources close to the appeals court suggest that judicial opinions often tone down the sharp rhetoric that emerges during oral arguments, but the level of criticism directed at Meghan's team was so pronounced that completely omitting it would be almost impossible. Samantha's legal team is reportedly preparing for multiple scenarios as they await the written decision. If the opinion includes strong language about the procedural failures of Meghan's attorneys, it could provide grounds for future legal actions or appeals in other jurisdictions. Ticken and his associates are already researching potential avenues for leveraging any favorable language in the appellate decision into broader legal strategies that could keep Meghan tied up in litigation for years to come. The possibility of a rehearing en banc looms large in the calculations of both legal teams. If the written opinion contains language that Meghan's attorneys find particularly damaging, they may have no choice but to seek review by the full appellate court, a move that would extend this legal saga indefinitely and create even more opportunities for embarrassing admissions and courtroom missteps. Sources suggest that Meghan's team is privately dreading this possibility because it would mean reliving their procedural mistakes in front of an even larger panel of judges. Palace insiders reveal that the uncertainty surrounding the next legal moves has created an atmosphere of constant tension in Meghan's inner circle. Every phone call could bring news of the written opinion, every legal briefing could reveal new strategic challenges, every media report could expose fresh vulnerabilities that opposing counsel might exploit. The psychological toll of living under this legal cloud is reportedly affecting not just Meghan, but everyone in her immediate orbit. Hollywood sources whisper about how the pending legal decisions are impacting Meghan's business negotiations and partnership discussions. Potential collaborators are reportedly inserting legal liability clauses into proposed contracts, protecting themselves against the possibility that association with Meghan could drag them into future litigation. The legal uncertainty has essentially created a premium that anyone doing business with the Duchess must now factor into their risk calculations. The international media coverage is intensifying as journalists and legal commentators prepare comprehensive analyses of whatever decision emerges from the appeals court. British tabloids have already prepared multiple versions of stories depending on whether the written opinion favors Samantha's narrative or provides Meghan with some face-saving language. The global attention means that whatever happens next will be dissected and analyzed by legal experts, royal commentators, and celebrity watchers around the world. Perhaps most importantly, the next legal moves will determine whether this case becomes a historical footnote or the beginning of a new era where Meghan's legal strategies face constant scrutiny and challenge. The royal fallout from whatever decision emerges promises to reshape everything. The reverberations from this legal earthquake are already reshaping how the world perceives Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's carefully constructed post-royal narrative. Palace sources suggest that this courtroom debacle has fundamentally altered the power dynamics between the Sussex brand and the broader royal establishment, creating vulnerabilities that could be exploited by critics, competitors, and even members of the royal family who have remained diplomatically silent until now. Royal commentators are describing this moment as a potential turning point in the Sussex story, where the couple's legal invincibility finally shows cracks that can't be sealed with glossy public relations campaigns or sympathetic media interviews. The woman who positioned herself as too sophisticated and strategic for royal protocol now finds herself associated with legal incompetence on an international stage. The irony is almost too perfect for those who have watched the Sussex saga unfold over the past several years. British media outlets are having an absolute field day with the contrast between Meghan's carefully crafted image as a master strategist and the reality of her legal team's courtroom fumbling. Sources within major UK publications reveal that editorial meetings are buzzing with plans for comprehensive coverage that will examine every aspect of how this legal disaster reflects on Meghan's judgment and competence. The narrative shift from victimized royal to someone who can't even manage her own legal affairs effectively is proving irresistible to commentators who have long questioned her strategic acumen. The implications for Prince Harry are particularly complex and potentially devastating to his own rehabilitation efforts. Sources close to Harry's circle suggest that this legal embarrassment complicates his attempts to rebuild relationships with his family and the British public. When your wife's legal strategies are being criticized by federal judges, it raises questions about the judgment and decision-making processes that led to your departure from royal duties. The guilt by association effect could undermine Harry's separate efforts to establish credibility as a mental health advocate and charitable foundation leader. International media coverage is painting this legal stumble as part of a broader pattern of Sussex missteps that suggest their post-royal strategy may have been fundamentally flawed from the beginning. Royal biographers are already incorporating this latest development into their analyses of how the couple's departure from royal duties has played out in practice. The legal incompetence narrative fits perfectly with existing criticisms about their business ventures, media strategies, and relationship management approaches. Palace insiders whisper that senior royals are watching this legal drama unfold with a mixture of vindication and concern. While there may be some satisfaction in seeing the Sussex legal machine stumble, there's also awareness that continued family dysfunction reflects poorly on the monarchy as an institution. The challenge for Buckingham Palace is maintaining appropriate distance from the drama, while ensuring that Meghan's legal troubles don't become broader royal public relations problems. The financial implications of this legal disaster are already becoming apparent to industry observers. Entertainment and publishing sources suggest that the Sussex brand's value has taken a significant hit as potential partners reassess the risks of association with someone whose legal judgment is now questionable. When your personal legal affairs become public embarrassments, it affects your ability to command premium prices for business ventures and partnership deals. Perhaps most significantly, this legal stumble has emboldened critics and potential adversaries who previously might have been hesitant to challenge the Sussex narrative directly. The courtroom demonstration that Meghan's legal team is fallible has essentially given permission to others who might have grievances or competing interests to pursue more aggressive strategies. The legal invincibility that once protected the Sussex brand from serious challenge has been permanently damaged. The long-term consequences of this moment will likely extend far beyond the immediate legal case, reshaping how Meghan and Harry navigate their post-royal lives and potentially influencing their relationship with the royal family for years to come. So what do you think about Samantha Markle's strategic legal victory and the way it's exposed cracks in Meghan's carefully constructed armor? Drop your thoughts below, like, subscribe, and stay tuned because the next video is waiting, and you won't believe what's coming next.